Hello everybody, my name is Esma and I have chosen to do my environmental sustainability project on the effects that coral bleaching has on the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is the world's biggest coral reef ecosystem and has also been placed on the National Heritage List. An organism called zooxanthellae is used to describe the numerous amounts of tiny algae that live within the thousands of corals that make up the reef. The zooxanthellae have a symbiotic relationship with their coral host and are what give the corals their amazing colour. When a relationship breakdown occurs between this zooxanthellae and its coral host, it causes the coral to stop being able to feed from algae, and this is when the act of coral bleaching occurs. Once the coral bleaching process begins, the corals go into starvation mode, and this is when the coral looks white, losing its once beautifully bright pigmentation, as the algae that once gave the corals their colour have now become transparent. The way that I researched this topic was using mainly online sources. I found sources through the search engine Google, Google Scholar and the Curtin University Library, and focused on sites or articles that were facts and evidence-based rather than emotively written. When I performed my searches, I made sure to pay attention to the Boolean search structures, so that way I was maximising my chances of finding the most relevant articles and information. The challenges faced while conducting research on Google was the many sites that were not of academic standard and didn't have credible sources of information published. There were often times that I was spending reading articles that were more opinion-based rather than being factual or showing information from studies that were credible. The coral reefs provide a habitat for many species living in the ocean, including fish and mollusks. These species live around the coral reefs and depend on them as part of their life cycle. The events of ongoing coral bleaching could affect the habitat and food availabilities for these species and fish. A big factor that can cause coral bleaching is the effect of carbon emissions, as it results in the corals not being able to absorb the calcium carbonate that is required to keep their skeletons healthy. A decrease in carbon emissions could potentially help by preventing the ocean that the reefs inhabit to be less acidic. I looked at some ways that we could reduce coral bleaching from an individual perspective. It was interesting to learn that some small things that I could do myself as an individual. These include things like avoiding using my car when possible and to walk or take a bus or ride a bike instead. It is such a small thing, but if we did this as a whole society, there would be significant benefits. In order to preserve the Great Barrier Reef for many generations to come, greater care needs to not only from a government and private sector, but also on the day-to-day activities and actions as individuals. The coral ecosystems that make up the Great Barrier Reef, including all organisms that inhabit it, have a right to be cared for so that the effects of any future coral bleaching events are minimal. If the ecosystems cannot be maintained from the long-term damage of coral bleaching, the future of the reef may be non-existent in decades to come, as the effects of the coral bleaching may affect the reef deeply and the damage may be irreversible. I believe that this inquiry project would suit years 4 and 5 in primary school, as it covers some of the content descriptors under the science understanding and science inquiry skills headings. By doing this type of project, students would acquire skills that help them identify science investigations, plan those investigations, solve the problems within them, and look at how living organisms depend on each other within a particular environment.